June 19th, 1865 is a very important day in history, known as Juneteenth. It's the date that many Americans, especially in the African American community, celebrate the end of slavery. Here's the thing though, slavery ended 2.5 months earlier. So what's the backstory? It involves the state of Texas, and most slaves in Texas had no idea that either the Civil War had ended or that slavery had ended. Here's the story. So you could put an ending date for slavery at potentially April 9th, 1865. That's the date that General Robert E. Lee of the Confederacy surrendered to General Ulysses Grant of the Union. That's the date that Grant and President Lincoln recognized for the end of the war. But technically, General Lee only surrendered his Army of Virginia, as it was known. There were other Confederate generals and other Confederate armies that didn't surrender. For example, through the months of April and into early May, General Johnston in North Carolina, General Taylor in Alabama, General Nathan Bedford Forrest, who would go on to be the head of the KKK, they kept fighting until they were put down. What happened when they were finally forced to surrender was a lot of Southerners fled and went to England or Canada. Some went to Brazil and British Honduras, which is known today as Belize, in order to spread slavery there. But many went to Texas, and they continued to fight in Texas. And they took as many slaves with them as they could to Texas. And they didn't recognize the April 9th surrender. Or perhaps the day before could be a date, April 8th. This is the day that the United States Senate approved the 13th Amendment. The 13th Amendment of 1865 ended slavery. The House had approved it earlier on January 31st, but Texas refused to recognize either of these and did not inform their slave population of them. Maybe you could recognize 2 years earlier as the beginning of the end of slavery. In spring of 1863, this is when the Union officially, formally put black soldiers in uniform to fight, to win the war and to win their freedom. And roughly 200,000 black soldiers and sailors would go on to serve during the war. However, Texas refused to recognize any of that or inform even some of their white population, but their enslaved population. January 1st, 1863 might be a day. That famously is the day that Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation, but you guessed it, Texas refused to recognize it and did not inform their slave populations of it. Even a year earlier, in spring of 1862, there were two important events. One of them, Lincoln pushed for and was successful in ending slavery, emancipating in the capital city, the Federal District. Secondly, informally, this is the first time black soldiers fought in uniform in the state of Louisiana and in New Orleans. A Union General, Benjamin Butler, won in New Orleans. And what he did is he used former slaves and free blacks in the area as kind of a home guard and put them in uniform. Several served with such distinction that he would make them officers, lieutenant, captain, some of the first black officers in American history. This is one of the many reasons why the South loathed Butler. They used to call him Beast Butler. But you guessed it, neither of these events were recognized in Texas, and the slave population of Texas was not informed of them. It was not until June 19th, 1865. That's when General Gordon Granger, a Union officer, landed at the port of Galveston in Texas with the Union Army. And he put down the final insurrection in Texas and informed the slave population throughout the state that not only was the war over, but slavery had ended. And thousands of former slaves in Texas went throughout the South trying to find friends and family to be reunited with them. Thousands more moved to the North or to the West to start their lives over. And that's why Juneteenth, June 19th, is such an important day, and we commemorate it as the end of slavery.